Every now and then there are milestones in transitions worth noting, and one of them is about to take place: the departure of Jay Leno from The Tonight Show.
When it comes to the kings of late-night television, Jay Leno's name easily rises to the top. A master of timing, charm, and razor-sharp wit, Leno knew exactly how to turn even the most awkward moments into ratings gold. But not every guest walked away with a smile or an invite back. Yes, even the best in the business has a limit, and some guests cross the line so badly that they earned themselves a permanent spot on Leno's blacklist. So, who were these infamous troublemakers? What did they do to get banned by the Tonight Show legend himself? Buckle up, because we're diving deep into the wildest, most controversial moments that had Jay Leno saying, "Never again." Kathy Griffin. Celebrities and late-night talk show hosts usually enjoy a pretty cozy, mutually beneficial relationship. The star gets a platform to plug their latest project. The host gets to charm the audience with fun anecdotes and juicy stories, and everyone walks away happy. But every so often, that balance gets completely thrown off, and when it does, things can get messy fast. In many cases, when a celebrity ends up banned from a late-night show, it's because of something they did on the show. Hosting a talk show means trying to wrangle spontaneous, unpredictable celebrities into sticking with the format, all while the cameras are rolling live. That leaves very little room for error or patience. One chaotic moment can get a star blacklisted permanently. In other instances, though, the ban doesn't even start on the soundstage. Sometimes the drama starts before the celebrity ever sets foot on set, thanks to personal feuds or clashes with the host. Some bans last forever. Others get lifted, only for the guest to blow it all over again. And topping that chaotic list is none other than Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin practically collects late-night bans like trophies. Being kicked off The Tonight Show with Jay Leno wasn't her first rodeo and definitely not her last. In fact, it might be easier to count the shows Kathy hasn't been banned from. The sharp-tongued, unapologetic redhead built her entire brand around crossing the line and then stomping on it. Griffin's style has never been safe. She's known for flying off the rails mid-interview and delivering jaw-dropping rants laced with serious foul language. Jay Leno, who liked to keep The Tonight Show fairly clean and mainstream, didn't want any part of that chaos on his set. But it didn't stop there. She was also famously banned from The Late Show with David Letterman. Eventually, she was allowed back, but not without stirring the pot all over again. During her return appearance, Griffin went completely off-script and stripped down to her underwear on air, leaving everyone stunned. That kind of unpredictability might work for a live concert or a stand-up gig, but on network television it's a one-way ticket to a permanent ban. What makes Kathy even more uncontainable is that she genuinely seems to enjoy the controversy. She openly revels in the backlash, almost treating the bans like badges of honor. And when someone thrives on the chaos they create, there's no telling what they'll do next, or which show will show her the door next. So when it comes to late-night bans, Kathy Griffin doesn't just top the list, she practically owns it. Howard Stern. Howard Stern and Jay Leno couldn't be more different when it comes to late-night entertainment. One is a shock jock known for pushing every possible boundary. The other, a traditionalist who built his empire on mainstream, family-friendly comedy. But their clash wasn't just about style. The real reason Jay Leno officially banned Howard Stern from The Tonight Show ran much deeper and messier. Their mutual dislike spans decades and has become one of the most bitter feuds in late-night history. Things hit a breaking point back in 1995, when Stern made what would become a notorious appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. From the moment he walked on stage, it was chaos. He didn't come alone. He brought along two bikini-clad women and immediately turned the show into something closer to a raunchy radio stunt. At one point, he even coaxed the women into kissing each other on live television. And that was just the beginning. Stern steamrolled over the entire segment. He spoke over Leno, interrupted the conversation, and completely disregarded the other guests, critics Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, making the whole interview spiral into total disorder. It was clear he wasn't just there to promote anything, he was there to provoke. Backstage, things exploded. Leno was reportedly livid, so angry that he nearly walked off the set in the middle of the taping. To Stern's producer, Leno didn't hold back. He fumed that Howard had *******ed in his house. The next day, Leno even called in to Stern's radio show to say that the stunt had gone beyond the acceptable standards. It was clear there would be no mending fences. Since then, Stern has never missed a chance to publicly trash Jay. He's dragged him through the mud for years, going after everything from Leno's comedy style to his personal integrity. He's mocked Leno's feuds with Conan O'Brien and David Letterman and accused him again and again of ripping off his material. Stern's favorite claim? That Leno built his success by stealing Stern's bits and ideas. Leno, for the most part, stayed above the fray. He rarely responded, though he did make a few pointed remarks questioning Stern's relevance. But things boiled over again in 2004, when Leno hired Stuttering John Melendez, a longtime member of Stern's radio crew, as an announcer for The Tonight Show. To Stern, this wasn't just a professional betrayal, it was personal. Stern lashed out, accusing Leno of blatant plagiarism and calling the move a slap in the face. Surprisingly, Leno reached out and offered Stern the chance to come back on The Tonight Show and clear the air, face to face. But Stern wasn't interested. He refused the invitation and doubled down on the insults. So while most celebrity bans from late night come from a single bad interview or a backstage clash, the war between Howard Stern and Jay Leno has been long, ugly, and personal. And unlike most feuds, this one never really cooled off. Bobcat Goldthwait. When it comes to wild and wildly inappropriate late-night guests, few have ever gone as far off the rails as Bobcat Goldthwait. His infamous appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno wasn't just outrageous, it literally went up in flames. What started as a typical interview quickly turned into chaos when Goldthwait suddenly pulled out a hidden can of lighter fluid, doused his chair with it, and set it on fire. Yes, live on national television in the middle of a conversation, he lit the set ablaze. While it may have looked spontaneous, it was anything but. Goldthwait came fully prepared for the stunt, concealing both the lighter fluid and the lighter up his sleeve like a pyromaniac magician. And the moment he made his move, panic erupted on set. Jay Leno and fellow guest Lauren Hutton jumped into action, grabbing water from nearby cups and trying desperately to put out the flames. It was dramatic, dangerous, and completely out of control. Goldthwait later admitted that Leno, understandably, was not pleased, and the consequences, oh, they came fast. The ban from The Tonight Show was just the beginning. NBC wasn't going to let it slide as just a wacky moment. They pressed charges. Goldthwait became the first guest in Tonight Show history to be criminally charged for his actions. He was slapped with an arson charge and ordered to pay a $3,880 fine, some of which went directly to NBC to replace the scorched chair he torched on air. But it didn't stop there. As part of the fallout, Goldthwait was also required to film public service announcements about fire safety. Yes, the guy who literally set a talk show chair on fire ended up warning others about the dangers of playing with flames. Still, Bobcat didn't exactly seem remorseful. In typical fashion, he made a joke out of it. On an episode of Comedy Product in 1996, he addressed the firestorm by saying, "I'm not an arsonist, I'm a satirist. If I were an arsonist, I would have been on The Tonight Show. Instead, I was bored shitless like the rest of America." It was classic Bobcat, wild, unapologetic, and totally unhinged. And while the incident earned him a permanent ban and a criminal record, it also cemented his place in late-night history as one of the most unpredictable guests to ever hit the stage. After all, it's not every day a comedy bit ends with fire extinguishers and felony charges. Conan O'Brien. One of the most bitter and tangled feuds in late-night television history wasn't between a host and a guest. It was between two hosts, Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. And in 2010, it all came crashing down in a very public, very messy way. For years, Leno had been the reigning king of The Tonight Show, holding the top spot at NBC since 1992. But by the mid-2000s, Conan O'Brien, who had been holding down the later slot with Late Night, was starting to get offers from rival networks. NBC, not wanting to lose him, made a huge promise. When Leno's contract ran out in 2009, The Tonight Show would become Conan's. Sounds simple, right? Not even close. When the time came in 2009, Leno stepped down, but not quietly. NBC, desperate to keep him from jumping to a competing network, gave him The Jay Leno Show, a primetime program that aired right before Conan's Tonight Show. But instead of helping ratings, the move backfired. Both shows started tanking in the numbers, and NBC, true to form, panicked. Their solution? They tried to push The Jay Leno Show into The Tonight Show's coveted 11:35 p.m. slot, bumping Conan's version of The Tonight Show to 12:05 a.m. It was a move that many saw as a betrayal of the network's promise. Conan didn't agree to inherit a second-rate time slot, and he made that crystal clear. Ultimately, he took a hefty payout and walked away. With Conan gone, Leno swooped back in and reclaimed his old desk. The public reaction was swift and unforgiving. NBC took a massive hit to its reputation, but Leno too was dragged through the mud. Critics blasted him for not stepping aside gracefully despite having previously promised he would. Instead, he painted himself as a passive victim of the network's decisions, an innocent pawn. But not everyone was buying it. For his part, Conan tried to take the high road. In a 2010 interview with Playboy, he explained that he had made peace with the entire ordeal and wasn't going to let it consume him. But when asked if he'd ever invite Jay Leno to appear as a guest on his new show on TBS, Conan didn't hesitate. His answer was blunt: "No, there are certain things I will not do, regardless of the price." And with that, the feud was sealed. Behind the polite smiles and public statements, it was clear. Late-night TV had never seen a power struggle quite like this, and it left deep scars on everyone involved. Joan Rivers. Jay Leno kept Joan Rivers off The Tonight Show for more than 2 decades, not because of his own grudge, but out of loyalty to Johnny Carson, the man who had banned her in the first place. Even though Leno never spoke to Carson directly about it, he maintained the ban long after Carson's retirement, and even after his death. The freeze finally ended in 2014, not with Leno, but under Jimmy Fallon's tenure, just months before Rivers died. It was a sad, bitter fallout considering how much The Tonight Show had meant to Rivers. One appearance in 1965 changed her life overnight. She had spent years scraping by, crashing in her car, juggling temp jobs, and burning bridges on other talk shows. But when she finally landed a spot on Carson's couch, her career ignited. After her witty performance, Carson told viewers, "You're going to be a star." And that's exactly what happened. The gigs started rolling in immediately, and her professional bond with Carson began. She would go on to appear on The Tonight Show almost 100 times, becoming the go-to guest host whenever Carson took time off. Though they never got close personally, Rivers credited him with opening every major door in her career, even introducing her to her future husband, Edgar Rosenberg. But things took a dark turn in the mid-'80s. After 20 years at the helm of The Tonight Show, Carson's retirement loomed, and rumors about potential replacements began swirling. Rivers naturally assumed she'd be in the running. After all, she had practically been training for the job for years as his regular fill-in. But when a list of possible successors began circulating, her name wasn't on it, not even a mention. At the same time, NBC had started dragging its feet about renewing her contract. And on top of that, Rivers felt she was being undervalued and underpaid. Then came an offer too good to turn down. Fox was launching its own late-night show, The Late Show starring Joan Rivers. They offered her the historic opportunity to be the first woman ever to host a network late-night program. The deal included a 5-year contract, $15 million, and a producer role for her husband. Everything Rivers had ever wanted was on the table. Still, she knew it was a dangerous move. Other comedians who had dared to branch off from Carson's show had been blacklisted immediately. If the Fox deal somehow fell through and Carson found out, she could be shut out for good. So she waited. Once the contract was ironclad and the announcement was imminent, she finally picked up the phone and called Carson. According to Rivers, she told him it was Joan, and that she had taken a new show with Fox and would be leaving The Tonight Show. Carson's response? He hung up. She called again. He hung up again. Carson, on his part, denied the call ever happened. He claimed he found out through a press release. A producer from The Tonight Show backed that version, telling the Los Angeles Times that Rivers had never mentioned anything about another show, not even when she appeared on the program just a week before her new series was announced. He described the reveal as shocking and said it was an unusual way to do business. But Rivers never backed down. In a 2012 piece for The Hollywood Reporter, She insisted Carson had lied about never receiving the phone call. She revealed that she continued to greet him warmly whenever she saw him in public, but he always turned away without speaking. "I would see him in a restaurant and go over and say hello. He wouldn't talk to me," she wrote. Why did Carson take it so personally? Rivers believed it wasn't just about business, it was about betrayal. She felt Carson now saw her as a rival, someone who had dared to compete in his time slot. But she also suspected something deeper. "I think he really felt because I was a woman that I just was his, that I wouldn't leave him," she reflected. "I know this sounds very warped, but I don't understand otherwise what was going on." Once The Late Show starring Joan Rivers debuted, things got worse. While some problems stemmed from production and internal clashes, particularly between her husband and network executives, many obstacles were directly tied to Carson's lingering influence. She struggled to book A-list guests, many of whom were either loyal to Carson or simply feared being blacklisted from The Tonight Show. Some network affiliates even refused to air her show as a sign of support for Carson. Within just 7 months, the pressure mounted. Fox demanded Rivers fire her husband. When she refused, they fired both of them. She was out. Her marriage soon fell apart. And just 3 months after their professional and personal split, Edgar Rosenberg died by suicide. It was the lowest point of her career. But Rivers didn't stay down for long. In 1989, she launched The Joan Rivers Show, a daytime talk show that marked the beginning of her comeback. Carson, meanwhile, never spoke publicly about the feud again, but Rivers did, often and with emotion. In 1992, on her own daytime show, she addressed the deep pain of being excluded from The Tonight Show's farewell episodes. Fighting back tears, she recalled what the show had meant to her. "It gave me everything, that show, but being shut out from its final moments made her feel like her entire history on it had been erased. It hurts me so much. Carson doesn't like me. Too bad. I do like him." In the end, it took nearly 30 years for Rivers to finally return to The Tonight Show. It was 2014. Jimmy Fallon was now the host, and he welcomed her back warmly. On Bloomberg later that night, Rivers called it amazing. "Getting back on that stage again," she said, "was very emotional. It was a moment of closure. The ban was lifted. The wounds remained. But for Joan Rivers, who had fought harder than most to earn a seat at the late-night table, it meant something. Maybe not forgiveness, but at least recognition." Dana Carvey, as a rising star on Saturday Night Live, quickly became known for his razor-sharp impressions. And thanks to that growing popularity, he landed a few coveted spots on The Tonight Show to promote SNL. At first, things between Carvey and Johnny Carson seemed to be going smoothly. Carson liked comedians who could think on their feet, and Carvey was the kind of impressionist who could steal the spotlight without even trying. But like fellow mimic Rich Little, Carvey eventually crossed a line Johnny didn't find so funny. The tension exploded after an SNL skit titled Carsenio, where Carvey portrayed Carson as a desperate Arsenio Hall knockoff. Wild gestures, over-the-top energy, and an out-of-touch vibe that painted Johnny as painfully past his prime. Carson was not amused. And if that wasn't enough, Carvey brought the same impression right to Johnny's face during a Tonight Show appearance. That was the last straw. Carson, who was famously private and extremely protective of his image, cut Carvey off completely. He didn't just ice him out socially, he barred him from promoting the Wayne's World movie on The Tonight Show, despite the film's massive buzz. Carson may have been in his final year as host, but he used that time to send a message. If you mocked Johnny, you didn't get a pass. When Jay Leno took over The Tonight Show in 1992, the late-night landscape shifted dramatically. The transition was already controversial. David Letterman had been gunning for the job and was openly frustrated when NBC handed it to Leno. Carvey, too, was rumored to be in the running at one point. While he didn't go public with any bitterness, some insiders claimed there was a brief period of awkwardness between him and Leno. But whatever tension existed, it didn't last. Over time, any awkwardness gave way to something more like friendly competition. Throughout their careers, Carvey and Leno traded barbs in the form of lighthearted jabs and comedic impressions. Nothing out of the ordinary in the world of stand-up and sketch comedy. Carvey's impersonation of Leno, complete with the chin, the cadence, and the denim, became a staple of his stand-up routine and SNL appearances. But unlike his Carson impression, The Leno parody was more affectionate than cruel. Audiences, and even Leno himself, understood it as playful rather than personal. In public, both men have gone out of their way to emphasize that there's no bad blood. Carvey has often said he respects Leno's legendary work ethic and considers him a friend. Leno, in turn, has spoken highly of Carvey's talent and creativity. While late-night drama has flared up between Leno and other comedians, most famously with Jimmy Kimmel, there's no real evidence of a full-blown feud with Carvey. Yes, The Tonight Show transition stirred up all kinds of behind-the-scenes politics, bruised egos, and shifting alliances. But in this case, the dust settled without lasting damage. Carvey found his groove in movies and stand-up, while Leno cemented his status as a late-night icon. And if you believe what they've both said publicly, they're more comedy comrades than rivals. Still, in the world of showbiz, impressions may fade, but bruised egos have a way of lingering just under the surface. Wayne Newton. Long before Jay Leno took over The Tonight Show, the legendary late-night program was already home to some of the most explosive off-camera feuds in showbiz history. One of the most shocking, the bitter and long-running grudge between pop singer Wayne Newton and the undisputed king of late-night Johnny Carson. Both men were giants in their fields. Carson as the suave, sharp-witted host who defined late-night TV for decades, and Newton as the velvet-voiced star who ruled the Las Vegas stage. Their relationship began as a warm, professional rapport, with Newton making multiple appearances on The Tonight Show. But by the 1970s, things took a dark turn, sparked by one thing: Carson's monologue jokes. During an appearance on Larry King Live, Newton explained that the friendship started to unravel when Carson began mocking him during his nightly monologues. The jokes focused on Newton's appearance, his height, and particularly his masculinity. He described feeling confused and hurt, unsure whether he had somehow offended Carson without knowing it. For over a year, he attempted to reach Carson privately, but the jokes kept airing. To the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Newton revealed how personal the attacks felt. The jokes, he explained, had no basis in truth and seemed to spread like wildfire among other comedians who followed Carson's lead in questioning his manhood. He insisted that there was no rhyme or reason behind it, just a wave of cruelty that seemed to come out of nowhere. Years later, in his interview with Larry King, Newton made his feelings crystal clear. He had never spoken the words on television before, but he believed Carson was a mean-spirited person. He pointed out that there were others who had been quietly hurt by Carson's behavior, people the public would never hear about. At some point, Newton added, Carson had decided to direct that negative attention toward him, and he had no intention of tolerating it. Eventually, Newton decided to confront the issue head-on. When Carson was in a meeting with longtime NBC producer Fred DeCordova, Newton entered the room uninvited and asked the producer to step out. Alone with Carson, he laid everything on the table. He questioned what kind of crime he had committed to deserve the constant humiliation. Had he harmed a friend of Carson's? Taken something from his children? Stolen food off his plate? Then he issued an ultimatum. The jokes would stop immediately, or there would be a physical confrontation. Carson attempted to de-escalate the moment by claiming he was Newton's biggest fan. Newton wasn't having it. He made it clear that he wasn't there for flattery. He was there to fix the problem. And however Carson wanted to go about that was up to him. The confrontation worked. The jokes stopped. But the grudge remained. Not long after, the two found themselves on opposite sides of a high-stakes business deal. When Newton outbid Carson and his business partner Ed Nigro for the Aladdin Hotel in 1980, rumors suddenly began swirling that Newton had ties to the mafia. It was a public relations nightmare that haunted him for years, and he believed those rumors had one source. During his interview with King, Newton expressed his belief that Carson had both the power and influence to make such damaging gossip stick. He was convinced that the accusations tying him to organized crime, including allegations that he was fronting for the mafia or being extorted by them, all traced back to Carson. In 1986, Newton was forced to publicly deny the rumors in the Los Angeles Times, but the damage was already done. Still, Newton wasn't finished fighting back. He sued NBC for libel and initially won a staggering $5.20 million, the largest victory against a news organization in a Hollywood libel trial at the time. But in 1990, the win was overturned by a federal appeals court, which ruled that the network's claims about Newton's alleged mob ties hadn't been proven deliberately or recklessly false. The years of legal battles left Newton financially drained. In 1992, he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, citing the mountain of debt from the lawsuit. Things didn't get easier. In 2005, the year Carson died, the IRS ordered him to pay an even larger sum, as confirmed by the Journal record. But in true Las Vegas fashion, Newton bounced back. Through sheer resilience and a series of successful residencies, he rebuilt his fortune and reclaimed his place in the spotlight. So while Jay Leno may be famous for banning guests from The Tonight Show, the host who came before him left behind a feud that burned far deeper. One filled with betrayal, confrontation, and the kind of behind-the-scenes drama that late-night audiences never saw coming. Which of these Tonight Show guests do you think deserved the ban? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.